Welcome to another special edition of the Crossroads Suncast. Like we did 2 weeks ago, we're bringing you the audio version of a recent forum in the race for the United States Senate. In late April, Democratic candidates for U.S. Senate took the stage in Paducah. Go back and listen to that episode if you missed it. In this week's episode, it's the Republicans' turn. The format of this forum is a little different. The candidates didn't appear on stage at the same time, instead answering questions all at once. Still, the questions are similar, with both Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr laying out their economic vision for Kentucky, specifically West Kentucky, when it comes to nuclear energy and the waterways industry. So let's get to it. Andy Barr is up first, followed by Daniel Cameron. Here's the forum in full, moderated by me, Todd Faulkner, and hosted by the Paducah Area Chamber of Commerce. And good afternoon. Today, the Paducah Chamber of Commerce brings to you an opportunity to hear the views of Kentucky's Republican primary U.S. Senate candidates on issues of importance to our business community. I will also note that on May 12th, we will have a forum for the McCracken County Judge Executive Republican candidates, and on April 27th, we hosted a U.S. Senate Democratic candidates. To those in the TV and digital viewing audience, we are broadcasting from the Paducah McCracken County Convention Center with a live audience who we have asked to remain silent during the forum. Before we begin, I want to share that we have a different format for today's event. This was agreed upon earlier this week by the candidates and the chamber. The candidates will appear separately on stage today. By email draw held earlier this week, Congressman Barr will go first, and we will follow the same format for each candidate. Each candidate will be giving their opening remarks. I will then ask questions, and then they will have time for their closing comments. Daniel Cameron will go second and follow the same format. Welcome, Congressman Barr, and thank you for joining us today. We will start with opening statements. You have 3 minutes for your opening statement, 2 minutes when we do the question portion, and 3 minutes for your closing statement. So we'll begin with your opening statement, Congressman.
Well, thank you, Todd and Sandra Wilson and the Paducah Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for the invitation to be with you all. It's an honor to be with you all. It's an honor to be with the nation's best Chamber of Commerce, 3 times going, the Triple Crown. Congratulations to all of you all. I'm an 8th-generation Kentuckian, born and raised in central Kentucky. My father is a serial entrepreneur. My mother is a hospital chaplain. I'm the grandson of 2 World War II veterans. I'm honored and proud to be a blessed husband and father of 4, 2 teenage daughters, and then a young 2.5-year-old son and a little baby 6-month-old Virginia. So I'm busy. In addition to being a congressman, I've served as the U.S. Congressman for Kentucky's 6th Congressional District for the last 14 years. This is my 7th and final term. I'm the chairman of the Financial Institutions Subcommittee. So I work in financial services policy. That's my area of concentration. I also serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. I'm a lawyer by trade. I graduated from the University of Kentucky College of Law, and I practiced in the private sector and private practice for over a decade before winning my seat in the U.S. House in central Kentucky. I think this is a very, very important decision for the people of Kentucky. First time in 42 years, we will have a new U.S. Senator. It's important that you evaluate and discern these choices because we are losing influence. And it's important that we have a U.S. Senator who can hit the ground running on day one, who doesn't need on-the-job training. I know this job. This is a job interview for me, but I know this job because I'm doing this job. As I said, serving on these powerful and important committees, and having a track record of delivering for the people of Central Kentucky. It's been a privilege of a lifetime to get a chance to represent and advocate for the signature industries of Central Kentucky. I want to do that for inland waterways. I want to do that for the gaseous diffusion plant and for the prospect of the technologies of the future coming to Paducah and artificial intelligence. When I say I'm already doing the job or I know the job, it's because I am. I've had a very extensive conversation with Secretary Chris Wright with the Department of Energy about a long-term commitment from the federal government to the purchase area, to Paducah, for this area with General Matter and GLE to continue the uranium enrichment project. The existing electrical infrastructure here, the sophisticated nuclear workforce that is here, the access to rail and water transportation, all of these are unique assets to this area. In addition, agriculture and manufacturing and the barge industry. These are our existing assets that I want to build upon as your next U.S. Senator.
All right, Mr. Barr, thank you. We'll move to the question round now. Paducah is a major inland maritime hub, given its location to 3 major rivers. Where do you place federal investment in that sector of our local economic driver in your list of priorities?
Well, for this area, it's at the top. I mean, this is a huge natural asset that we have. It's a source of jobs and economic activity. I have been a part of the Water Resources Development Reauthorization process over the years. I've voted for WRDA bills over time. I have a good relationship with the chairman of the Transportation Committee, Sam Graves. We've talked about inland waterway issues. I've visited with Crown's. I've visited with other barge companies and learned about the Jones Act. So these are important policy issues that the next senator needs to be aware of, needs to be advocating for. And the Corps of Engineers, I do have exposure to them on a much smaller scale because the Kentucky River is not the Mississippi or the Tennessee or the Ohio rivers. But I have exercised oversight over the Corps of Engineers in the course of my representation of Central Kentucky. That oversight would obviously have to get a lot more vigorous to make sure that the Corps is investing with our appropriations process in the infrastructure to continue to make this an inland waterway hub for the region, and we can build on that existing economic strength that we have here in West Kentucky.
Okay. Next question. Specifically, the Kentucky Lock Addition is expected to need additional funding because of its importance surrounding our inland waterways. What steps will you take to work with other lawmakers to secure that funding?
Well, like I said, I do have experience with the appropriations process. The next chairman of the House Transportation Committee is likely going to be my good friend David Rouser. In the Senate, obviously, I would be working with a different group of people. But the good thing is a lot of those senators, I have existing relationships as well. I've worked in a bicameral way, and we've worked with members of the Senate Transportation Committee as well. You know, our inland waterway system moves millions of tons of cargo every single year at a fraction of the cost of rail and the highway system. And so we have to take advantage of that. That's a huge natural advantage that we have, but it requires investment. It requires policy advocacy, whether it's the Jones Act issue or whether it is infrastructure and upgrading our locks system. That requires not only appropriations, but oversight. What I have found is that you can pass a WRDA bill or you can pass a transportation appropriations bill, but if you don't exercise that oversight over the Corps of Engineers, projects languish. And we need reform of the Corps to move projects forward. That's why I've been supportive of permitting reform as well in other areas of infrastructure.
Next question. What is your opinion on closed, current, or new coal plants being used to meet the challenge of rapidly growing electricity demand?
Well, as I said, I have a vision for Kentucky, and we are an energy juggernaut in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Yes, we have this nuclear fuel infrastructure here in West Kentucky. We also have the West Kentucky coal fields, and we have billions of tons of recoverable coal still underground beneath our feet in Kentucky after 125 years of mining coal. We also have natural gas infrastructure running north-south through the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and you all know our water infrastructure so well here, and our asset, our natural asset. We have more navigable waterways in Kentucky than any other state outside of Alaska, so we have untapped hydro potential. This makes us an energy juggernaut. What are the technologies of the future? What do they require? Dispatchable baseload firm power. And we have it here in Kentucky. So we are uniquely positioned to attract the energy-hungry technologies of the future. Artificial intelligence data centers, the infrastructure, quantum computing, digital assets. These technologies of the future require massive amounts of electricity. We have made a terrible strategic error in this country by prematurely retiring 290 coal-fired power plants. So I've been working with this administration, Lee Zeldin at the EPA, Chris Wright, Burgum, the head of the National Energy Dominance Council, to roll back some regulations to extend the useful life of our existing fossil energy fleet. Shawnee, I visited just recently, and fortunately the TVA has been able to extend the life of those power plants. But we actually need to bring on more electricity power generation in this country in order to meet the massive spike in energy demands. We're looking at 2 to 3 times the amount of energy demand over the next 5-10 years because of all of this. In contrast, my opponent, he supported as Attorney General the premature retirement of the Mitchell plant in West Virginia. We need more, not less, coal-fired power plants in this country, and we can do it if we invest. We can do it with lower emissions as well.
Mr. Barr, thank you. Next question. In 2025, the federal government announced that the Department of Energy Paducah site could be one of 4 DOE sites that in the nation to host an artificial intelligence data center. When the RFIs were issued, the Paducah site received significant interest, and DOE could announce one soon. What role do you see the community playing in an AI data center?
Well, this part of Kentucky in particular, Paducah, is uniquely positioned to attract these AI jobs. And this is a national security imperative for our country. We are in a race for AI dominance against China. This is something we focus on in the China Select Committee. It is a strategic competition. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, the most sophisticated chip maker in the world, arguably, who grew up, by the way, and spent some time at Oneida Baptist Institute in Clay County, Kentucky, and East Kentucky. He says that China is only nanoseconds behind the United States. This is important because AI has military applications in addition to productivity gains that we can achieve as a result of artificial intelligence in law, in medicine, in pharmaceutical development, and obviously in military applications as well. So because of our energy, because of our industrial site here, we can attract, and because of our utility infrastructure here, we are uniquely positioned to attract these jobs, construction jobs, operations jobs, and be a real leader. As I said before, I've had extensive conversation with the Department of Energy, Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, about this part of Kentucky. He has committed to me to making a long-term commitment to Paducah. Obviously, the $900 million grant to General Matter is a big deal. The additional DOE grant to GLE is a big deal. And we want the DOE to recognize this as one of the 4 sites that could attract these AI hubs around the country because of all of the assets that we have here. But as I say before, Kentucky is in a great position, not just in West Kentucky, but I would argue also in Eastern Kentucky, to power these technologies of the future. We can do it with nuclear, we can do it with coal, we can do it with natural gas, and we can do it with hydropower.
All right, next question. The decades-long DOE cleanup is a major economic driver in our region. Typical funding is approximately $350 million and is expected to increase over the years. How will you work to secure the ongoing support and funding as the amount increases to provide for an accelerated level of cleanup?
Well, look, the appropriations process is sometimes opaque to the American people. Look, we have a debt challenge in this country. Obviously, the interest we pay on the national debt is $1 trillion a year. We do need a spending reform. We do need to live within our means, and I've voted for spending reductions in the past. But when an appropriations bill is actually done and the money is being allocated, it's the job of the representative or the senator from that particular state to go after those funds and fight for a return on the taxpayer's investment. And it's an easy sell for Paducah. It's an easy sell because of the asset, the national security asset that we have right here. And the cleanup process needs to continue. I know the appropriations process, and you don't have to take my word for it. Ask my constituents in Central Kentucky. Ask the University of Kentucky if I've been successful or how I've been successful in securing federal dollars for the University of Kentucky or Eastern Kentucky University or for county governments. And working with appropriators is very important, and developing relationships with the chairman of the appropriations is important, and to make the case for why a particular appropriation is required. So we can build on the existing precedents that have been set and the commitments, the long-term commitments that the federal government has made to Paducah at the gaseous diffusion site.
Japan has committed to putting $550 billion into U.S. investments. How do you look at that commitment?
Well, I am the co-chair of the Congressional Study Group on Japan. Both of my grandfathers fought in the Pacific in World War II. How times have changed. Japan is one of our key strategic allies in this competition with the Chinese Communist Party. I've been to Tokyo a number of times as the co-chair of that caucus. And why am I a co-chair of that caucus? Why am I the co-chair of the Bipartisan Global Investment in America caucus? Because I recognize, representing the largest Toyota manufacturing facility in the world in Georgetown, Kentucky, where I'm heading later this afternoon, we have a responsibility to continue to attract foreign direct investment from Japan and other places to Kentucky. These are jobs that are typically higher paying jobs. FDI contributes enormously to Kentucky's domestic product, and we need to keep that investment coming. I credit the administration for a terrific negotiation with the Japanese and ending up with a framework that resulted in an additional, like you said, over a $500 billion commitment in additional investment in the United States. Kentucky is really positioned to attract that investment because of Estemo, because of Suntory, because of Toyota. Their existing relationship with Kentucky is very, very pronounced. And so we're in a great position to go get that commitment for additional investment in Kentucky. Let's bring it to West Kentucky. Let's bring some of that investment over in West Kentucky. They have committed, by the way, a lot of that investment in critical minerals, in strategic items, including artificial intelligence. So we can sell the purchase area to the Japanese, fulfill their commitment to these technologies of the future, the innovation hub that we have here. And we do have, critical mineral mining opportunities in West Kentucky as well.
All right, next question. How important do you believe it is that our country's economy grow, and do you believe it makes a difference if it's 1%, 2%, 3% per year, and what will be the drivers of that success?
Great question, and no doubt growth is important. I was talking about our debt and deficit challenges. Yes, I voted for rescissions packages. I was part of the DOGE caucus. Yes, I support spending reductions and mandatory spending reforms to live within our means. But our debt and deficit challenges facing our country are so acute at this point, $39 trillion in debt. The only way we can really solve this problem is massive economic growth. Fiscal responsibility is really important. But the only way we're actually going to solve this problem and stop the process of bankrupting our country is to grow this economy so fast that what we owe starts to shrink relative to the overall size of the economy. So 1, 2, 3% growth, big differences. We would, at 1% growth, we double the economy in 70 years. But 3% growth, we double it in a third of that time. So growth is really critical, more taxpayers, more productivity. And these technologies of the future are going to accelerate economic growth, but we need smart fiscal policies as well, smart tax, smart regulatory policies. We are working with this administration on these pro-growth fiscal policies, tax cuts for businesses, regulatory relief. And as a member of the House Financial Services Committee, this is the Capitalism Free Enterprise Committee, where I get a chance to advocate for competitive, liquid, deep capital markets, regulatory right-sizing of our banks so that community banks, which are the American dream makers for our country, provide access to capital for new business formation, for entrepreneurship, for the dream of home ownership. I have been privileged to get a chance to advocate for a dynamic and diverse financial ecosystem because that's the key to financial independence, upward mobility, and the American dream. And I have said to Leader Thune that if the people of Kentucky want me to do this job, I do want to go on to the Senate Banking Committee, where I could build on that expertise and advocate for pro-growth policies, especially in our capital markets.
Sir, thank you. The war in Iran and the situation in the Strait of Hormuz has caused gas prices to spike. In Kentucky, the average price is $4.23 a gallon. How would you work with the Senate, the House, and the White House to address the budget concerns Kentuckians have over gas prices?
Well, they should have concerns over gas prices. I do too. We all want gas prices to come down, and go back to where they were pre-war. remember, this administration, this Congress is making great progress on bringing down the cost of living and bringing down the cost of energy before the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz. But this effort to make sure that the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism no longer has the ability or the capability of acquiring a nuclear weapon, this is a war worth winning. And this is a process of not starting a war, but ending a 47-year war. Gas prices were lower, much lower than where they were in the previous administration. Thank goodness, because of an energy-dominant strategy, because of more domestic production, because of Venezuela, and we now have access to that crude as well. The Strait of Hormuz is the last remaining piece of the process of eliminating, degrading the capabilities, both nuclear and conventional, of the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. And the administration is making good diplomatic progress. I think when you see these incidents where these small boats are being sunk by the U.S. Navy, it's largely not a regime-directed effort. They have been decimated so much that they lack command and control. So it will take a few more weeks, maybe a few more months, to stabilize freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, to stabilize global energy markets. But I think we are well on our way, and the temporary increase in energy prices will abate as time goes on and as we continue the effort to secure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. And President Trump has given himself all of the leverage by degrading the capabilities of this regime.
All right, last question before closing statements. Barkley Regional Airport is a key piece to ongoing development in Western Kentucky. It receives funding through the federally funded Essential Air Service. What are your thoughts on EAS funding for regional airports like Paducah?
Very, very important for general aviation, for regional airports like Barkley. And I have advocated for regional airports in my own district before, in Mount Sterling, in Georgetown, the Central Kentucky Regional Airport in Madison County. Very, very important to the Central Kentucky economy. Critical for Mayfield and for Paducah as well, these regional airports. And I'll be an advocate for these regional airports, just as I have been in Central Kentucky. One thing you get with me that you don't get with my opponent is existing relationships with the U.S. Department of Transportation. Sean Duffy is going to come to Kentucky if I'm the nominee, because he and I were best friends in the Congress. And we've talked about these regional airports and the need for, new towers and new infrastructure. And we will be advocating effectively for you all with the Secretary of Transportation, but also in Congress, because of the existing relationships I have in both the House and the Senate on the Transportation Committee. Again, this is not a time for on-the-job training. You get someone who is going to be able to hit the ground running on day one, who knows what he's doing, understands the appropriations process, understands what a FAA reauthorization legislation looks like, can offer amendments, can advocate for those amendments, and then can work the process with oversight in communication with this administration. People ask, why are you advertising so much about your endorsement from President Trump or talking about President Trump all the time? What it's about is being an effective advocate for you. It's having existing relationships, by the way, on both sides of the Capitol building and in both parties, and I work across the aisle, but having that relationship with this administration is very, very important to make me an effective advocate for bringing resources, bringing policy results for the people of Kentucky. And so I'm very proud of those relationships, and I'm proud of my ability to work across the aisle and develop relationships to get results.
Mr. Barr, thank you, and I misspoke. I have one more question. Then we'll get to closing statements. What can you say to assure your constituents in Western Kentucky that you're committed to their priorities? How do you plan to stay involved throughout the state, and do you commit to have an office in Paducah?
Absolutely. It's very important. People understand West Kentucky is not Bowling Green. It's west of I-65, and I understand why. And when I was visiting Hickman County, I had a great visit with Hickman County, and I think they were surprised and impressed that a Senate candidate came to Hickman County. And the judge told me at the very end of our meeting, we talked about their priorities and some of the things that were going on there, and the subsidence into the Mississippi, and The point that he made to me at the very end was, don't forget us. Don't forget us. And the Purchase region deserves a senator who will be accessible and present. And I've committed to coming to Fancy Farm every year, but it's not just Fancy Farm I want to come to. I want to come speak to you and listen to you at chamber events and be active part of this community because it's a huge economic driver for the entirety of the Commonwealth. United we stand, divided we fall. You can't ignore one part of the state. And I was criticized when I first ran for Congress for focusing on the coal industry, running in a congressional district where horses and bourbon and maybe basketball are king. But the reason why I care about the gaseous diffusion site, the reason why I care about AI down here, the reason why I care about the innovation that's happening here, and uranium enrichment, and the infrastructure down here, and the inland waterway economy. The reason why I do is because, for the same reason I care about the coal, revitalizing the coal industry in the mountains in the east. United we stand, divided we fall. And we need a vibrant economy here. By the way, my dad is a serial entrepreneur. He taught me to love and appreciate a great American president, Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge said, the business of the American people is business. And serving on the Free Enterprise Committee in Congress gives me a chance to be a fighter and advocate for business. That's why the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has given me every single year the Spirit of Enterprise Award, because I believe that the business of the American people is business. And I believe in hard work and perseverance, just like Calvin Coolidge said. And you will get someone who is hardworking, will persevere, and be accessible to West Kentucky.
All right, closing statements begin now. Mr. Barr.
Well, I really appreciate this forum and this opportunity to share with you my vision, my experience, my background, and my passion for what would be an extraordinary responsibility. And as I said before, we are losing experience. We are losing influence in Washington, D.C., and so it's really important that Kentucky continue to do, as Senator McConnell said, to punch above its weight. I'm not suggesting I can fill shoes or anything, and I'm my own man. People have asked me ever since I was first elected to Congress, hey, you're a Republican from Kentucky. Are you a Rand Paul Republican or a Mitch McConnell Republican? I'm neither. I'm an Andy Barr Republican. I'm my own man. But what I am far beyond being a Republican is being a dad, a husband, and a lover of Kentucky. I love Kentucky. And when I travel overseas as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and bipartisan delegations, my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, they laugh because when we're overseas, I talk about Kentucky Fried Chicken and bourbon and horses. And when I'm in Japan or Indonesia or Thailand or in Europe, I advocate for Kentucky, and my colleagues kind of make fun of me in the halls of Congress. Say, oh, there's Barr. Here's what bill is he filing on bourbon or horses or agriculture or coal? Because they know I'm about Kentucky first. It's not as much about Republican or Democrat. It's about being a champion for the signature industries of Kentucky, being an advocate for the dreams, the hopes, and aspirations of Kentucky. And the reason why I love serving on the Financial Services Committee is that I do believe in the American dream. The idea that the condition of your birth should not determine the outcome of your life. I want the American dream for every Kentuckian. I want it for every Kentuckian, rural, suburban, urban, regardless of race or gender. I want it for everybody. And so that's why I am so passionate about policies that produce economic growth, that produce workforce development, that produces educational opportunities for our people, because that is what is going to deliver the American dream. And my vision for Kentucky is that we have all the assets in the world. I talked about attracting the technologies of the future. You guys are way ahead, frankly, of not just the rest of the state, but of the rest of the country. And it's important. It is about jobs and the American dream for your people, but it's also about national security. We are in a race with China. In many respects, China is ahead of schedule on their strategic objective to replace the United States as the world's global superpower. We have to win the race for these technologies of the future. And I want to, my vision, if you want me to do this job, and it's your choice, and you would be my boss, I would be your employee. If you want me to do this, I want your ideas. My door will be open, but my vision is to position Kentucky not only for more jobs for our people and more opportunity, but to help advance American competitiveness. And Kentucky has all the tools to do it. Thank you all very much.
All right, Mr. Barr, thank you. Let's give him a nice round of applause. All right, please join me in welcoming Daniel Cameron to the stage.
Todd, how are you?
Good. All right, I'd like, first of all, welcome to Paducah. And I'd like to call your attention to our timekeeping method for your responses.
Okay.
I will mention how much time you have for your comments or answer to a question, and the yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds left.
Understood.
The red light will come on when you're out of time, and I'll politely cut you off.
Okay.
You have 3 minutes for opening statements and closing statements, and then 2 minutes for each question. So let's begin with your opening statement, 3 minutes.
Well, Todd, thank you, and to the Paducah Area Chamber of Commerce, thank you for giving me an opportunity to be here today, to have this forum to talk about the race for the United States Senate. But more important than that, this is a race about our kids and our grandkids. In fact, that's why I got into the race. It's because of our 3 boys. You've gotten to know a couple of them. You've gotten to know Theodore, our oldest, and Bennett, our middle child, who just celebrated his 2nd birthday, and then Harrison, who is our 10-week-old. We got into this race because we want to ensure that this country, and more specifically this Commonwealth, lives up to the ideals of its founding, a country that is based on merit and opportunity and is not riven by the divisions that we see pushed on us by the left, namely in the form of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I tell people all the time that we don't need a country that is built on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need a country that is built on merit, excellence, intelligence, and integrity. And so when I think about the role of the United States Senate, it is a platform from which to speak about the issues that are plaguing our communities. And it's a platform from which to talk about the subjects that people in this community and across our 120 counties care about. That's why on this campaign, I've been talking about the importance of making sure that you keep more money in your pocket, that it doesn't go to the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., to make sure that when it comes to energy independence, that we continue to punch above our weight and we support coal and natural gas, and yes, the nuclear that is coming online at the gaseous diffusion plant. This is about ensuring that our farmers have a champion in Washington, someone that is going to stand firm for their values and make sure not only that we reauthorize a farm bill, but we actually get a new farm bill so that they have what they need and know that there's a champion in Washington. This is about passing the Save America Act so that when it comes to the elections of this country, we can validate that people are American citizens and we can ensure the integrity of our elections. This is about making sure that we get prescription drug costs down so that we can lower the overall cost of health care. And that means working with our independent pharmacists to do that and reforming the PBM process. This is about, at the end of the day, speaking truthfully and boldly on the issues that are confronting our country. And I've said ever so often that at the end of the day, my relationship and my identity in Christ is part of this campaign. And I'm going to talk truthfully and boldly on the issues that we care deeply about, and I would be honored to serve as the next senator from this great Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Mr. Cameron, thank you. We'll move to questions now. Paducah is a major inland maritime hub, given its location to 3 major rivers. Where do you place federal investment in that sector of our local economic driver in your list of priorities?
It is a top priority. Look, there's no question that not only is this an inland maritime hub, but this is the economic hub for the region. And I think of my dear friend Matt Ricketts, who I assume is in this room somewhere, at Crounce, and what they've done with the Waterways Council. I think of what Marquette Transportation has done in bringing nearly $5 million of investment to this community. I think about the millions of dollars that flow through here because of those waterways. And it's no secret that a lot of dollars and resources have been secured here because of Senator McConnell. And we need somebody in Washington that's going to maintain the responsibility of being a champion for that investment. Whether it's the Build Grant, which is helping revitalize over maybe that direction, what's happening on the riverfront, or whether it is the billions of dollars that have been secured for the Kentucky Lock and Dam or the Olmsted dams. You need somebody in Washington that knows what is important and vital to the economic health of this community. I want to make sure that we keep coal running on those barges in the rivers as long as possible. That's why I have advocated day in and day out for our coal industry. It's why I think what we have happening at the gaseous diffusion plant is so vital. But we know the heritage and history of this community is on that river, and I'm going to do everything in my power to support it and prioritize getting resources to this community because you all deserve it, and it ensures that the economic vitality of this community is sustained.
You mentioned the Kentucky Lock. That addition is expected to need additional funding because of its importance surrounding our inland waterways. So what steps will you take to work with other lawmakers to secure that funding?
I'll make sure to be a part of the meetings. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, look, Senator McConnell has had an outside presence in being engaged in a part of those conversations. I've got great relationships in the United States Senate. A lot of you all know, and in fact, I met a lot of you all when I was serving as counsel in the Senate. And so I've got strong relationships there. I've got strong relationships with a number of senators, whether it's Eric Schmidt from Missouri, Katie Britt in Alabama. The list goes on and on of people that I'm going to be able to work with. Senator Paul here in this Commonwealth. We might not agree on all the subjects and how we bring about effective change and ensure economic vitality, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be a strong advocate for this community to make sure that we get more money for the Kentucky Lock, because we know that shipping delays, when that occurs on the river, it causes a lot of backup. We cannot afford that in this day and age as we are looking in a global confrontation in terms of economic confrontation with China. We've got to do everything possible to make sure that those waterways are moving and the barges and ships are moving as quickly as they can through those waterways so that goods can move throughout this nation. And I'm going to do everything I can to ensure those resources are brought here so that we can fast track and make sure that we stay on the timeline that is already there with 2030.
All right, thank you, sir. Next question. What is your opinion on closed, current, or new coal plants being used to meet the challenge of rapidly growing electricity demand?
I believe, just like the present administration, that we've got to generate more coal in this nation. And we've got to do it here in the Commonwealth. Look, there's no secret that whoever wins when it comes to energy consumption and whoever is generating the most energy to meet the demand of consumption is going, in my judgment, for decades to come, lead this globe. And the United States stands in a great position to do it. Think of what the administration has already done in making sure that we are reshoring a lot of manufacturing. We're moving again in this country. But here in Kentucky, we can lead the way because we have low cost and reliable energy, whether that's in the form of coal or natural gas, or again, what's happening with nuclear. When it comes to coal, I'm going to be the biggest advocate that can possibly be in the United States Senate because I know it is a part of the heritage of this great Commonwealth. And when it comes to ensuring that there's more generation, we need more of it because we cannot afford a future. And as President Trump talks about it, this is clean coal. Clean coal technology is helping lead the way on this, but we cannot have a future in which we do not utilize and generate more coal. In fact, I would argue that it's a national security interest if we do anything else. We would have blackouts, we would have grayouts, and we simply cannot, in my judgment, have that when we're in a global race against China, which is doing everything they can to bring energy into their nation. And so I'm going to be a proponent of coal. As Attorney General, I fought the administration, the Biden administration, on some of their anti-coal antics. And I'm going to be a huge advocate alongside President Trump and the other members of the Senate that recognize the importance of coal production to our future.
All right, next question. In 2025, the federal government announced that the Department of Energy Paducah site could be one of 4 DOE sites in the nation to host an artificial intelligence data center. When the RFIs were issued, the Paducah site received significant interest, and DOE could announce something soon. What role do you see our community playing in AI data centers?
Well, look, I think this area, this community, McCracken County and the broader region, can lead not only on energy independence, but in the economy of the future. There's no question, sometimes we talk about it as the economy of the future, but really it's in the present. Whether you think about AI or cryptocurrencies, these things consume a ton of data. And what we have here and the opportunity that is here is a good one. It's because of that low cost and reliable energy. But what I have said, and I will say repeatedly, is that when it comes to any of these facilities that are making its way into a community, it has to be done by the consent of the people. I think you all would agree with that you all, as a community here in Paducah, as a community in McCracken County, get to make the decision, and you should do it in a way that reflects your priorities. And what, in my judgment, that priority should look like is, one, economic vitality, bringing jobs into the community, but also being very stringent or being very insistent on the fact that when it comes to these facilities coming into this community, the ratepayer, meaning folks that are in neighborhoods, residents of communities, should not pay for the increased cost in energy consumption. It's my judgment that the operator of that facility that are making billions of dollars in revenue, in profits, they should be the ones that incur the cost of any additional generation as opposed to neighborhoods and residents of a community. And also, when it comes to the infrastructure, you all here have an opportunity with the infrastructure that is in place at the gaseous diffusion plant. That should be a vital part of it. I think of Oldham County, where, look, they're having this conversation. I think of Hancock County, that has had this conversation and has decided to embrace it. But at the end of the day, it's based on the will of the people.
The decades-long DOE cleanup is a major economic driver for our region. Typical funding is approximately $350 million and is expected to increase over the years. How will you work to secure ongoing support and funding as the amount increases to provide for an accelerated level of cleanup?
Well, look, when I was first introduced to the people of this community back in 2019, when I was running for Attorney General, Corey Hicks and Mr. Owens were vital in my understanding of what it meant to make sure that the cleanup continued and that there was strong support from Congress as it relates to that cleanup. So I will be a consistent voice on making sure the dollars and resources are coming to this community for that cleanup. But what I'm excited about is obviously the quickened pace of that cleanup, but the real opportunity that exists right now. I mean, you think about the fact that whether it's a potential for AI data center or the work that is could potentially be done out there related to nuclear and the enrichment of uranium, this community has had a great history and tradition of understanding what enrichment looks like because you've done it. And the idea that when it comes to generation of energy and the consumption of energy, that this area could lead the way, you guys have got to be excited about that. I mean, that will put this community at the forefront of energy independence and energy dominance. Dominance that could lead the globe for decades to come. So yes, I'm going to be fully behind ensuring that the resources and dollars come back to this community for the cleanup. But what you all understand, and whether it's Judge Clymer or Eddie Jones, who is a commissioner here, what you all understand is the responsibility that you have to make sure that you enter into public and private partnerships. What's going on with General Matter at the gaseous diffusion plant, that is a great start to making sure that this community leads on energy dominance.
Thank you, sir. Japan has committed to putting $550 billion into U.S. investment. How do you look at that commitment?
Well, I look at anything that can bring, let me start by saying this. I look at that as a part of a larger landscape related to the Trump economic agenda. It's an agenda that is allowing for resources to come back. We're seeing, as it relates to reshoring of jobs and manufacturing and investment, and I think that the money that you were referring to is a part of an effort to make sure that we are creating an ecosystem of domestic supply chains and ensuring that when it comes to resourcing things here in this community and across this Commonwealth and this country, we're going to continue to see that type of investment. Because of the Trump economic agenda, we've seen $17 trillion come into this country. $200 billion of that has been because of the tariff revenue. And then you think of what has happened in this Commonwealth. I think of in Louisville, where there was billions of dollars that are being spent at the Ford plant, and that's helping secure 2,200 jobs. I think of Mercer County. I imagine Congressman Barr talked about this. The billions of dollars that are going there for Corning glass. Again, I think about the investment that I just mentioned here related to Marquette, and then you also have Heinz Furlong. Again, and I think that was maybe $11 million worth of investment. These are good things, and we're seeing investment come back to this country and this Commonwealth because of that Trump economic agenda.
How important do you believe it is that our country's economy grow, and do you believe it makes a difference at 1%, 2%, 3% per year, and what will be the drivers of that success?
I think we have to be staunch advocates for economic growth across this Commonwealth. And you all, in my judgment, are sitting on a gold mine when it comes to economic activity and growth in this community. I mean, you think about, as I mentioned earlier, what is going to dictate the future is energy consumption and generation of that energy. And so we need to help set the conditions in Washington that allow for the strongest economic thriving of our people and our communities back home. And so I'm going to be an advocate for that. And so whether that is ensuring that we keep your taxes even lower, good work was done in the big, beautiful bill on no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. But let's do more. Let's do more to invigorate capital investment in our communities. Here, let's make sure that when it comes to General Matter and others, that they recognize that when they invest in this community, they're going to have opportunities because Congress is making decisions that make that investment a good benefit. So we've got to do whatever we can in the United States Senate to ensure that we grow, and we grow as quickly and fast as we can to make sure that, when it comes to our future generations, our kids and our grandkids, that there are real opportunities for them here in this community. My friend Cade Foster has young kids. I'm sure he wants them to live and maintain residency in this community. I think of your sheriff and the work that he is doing to make sure that our communities are safe and that McCracken County is safe. Part of safety is economic certainty. And you all have a real opportunity, and anything we can do in Washington to advance that, I'm going to be supportive of.
The war in Iran and the situation in the Strait of Hormuz has caused gas prices to spike. The average price in Kentucky right now is $4.23 a gallon. How would you work with senators, the House, and the White House to address the budget concerns people in Kentucky have right now?
Well, as I've talked about earlier, let me first say I appreciate what President Trump has done to take decisive action to limit a regime in Iran that has been terrorizing our people since the late 1970s. They've been harming, they've been maiming, they've been killing American servicemen and women, and this president had the fortitude to say that enough is enough. And we should be grateful, whether it is in Iran or whether it is what we saw in Venezuela in removing a narco-terrorist, someone who was preying on addiction and poisoning our communities. These are good steps. And I know President Trump and his team, look, they've talked extensively about the fact that we are not going to be engaged in forever wars. And I believe that this administration wholeheartedly wants to find a resolution to this. But we had to remove a regime in Iran that ultimately was trying to enrich uranium to give them nuclear missile capability. And that could not happen because that would have undermined the safety and security of our citizens. Now, Todd, to your point, when it comes to the challenges that exist, whether it's because of the Strait of Hormuz and the limitations that are placed there and requiring that some of the oil prices have gone up and people are seeing that at the pump. We should all be sensitive to that fact, and we cannot hide away from that fact. And I appreciate President Trump saying that we've got to be focused on that like a laser. It's why I believe that when it comes to taxes, let's keep those low, put more money in your pocket, and let's make sure that we can pay for those gas prices in the short term. But what we also do, and this is vital, is reshore domestic, making sure that we have domestic oil production. We for too long, and I apologize if I can take one more minute, if we for too long have relied on foreign adversaries for oil production, we need to bring that back to the United States.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Barkley Regional Airport's a key piece to ongoing developments in Western Kentucky. It receives funding through the federally funded Essential Air Service. What are your thoughts on EAS funding for regional airports like Paducah?
It is critical. I mean, you think about Barkley and you think about the opportunities for recruitment that come because you have that service here that provides a gateway in many ways to other parts of the country, but also allows the country to come here. And that's vital in terms of economic activity, recruiting, as I mentioned, tourism. When you're thinking about leaders of Fortune 500 companies or those that are within the barge industry that need to get here quick to make assessments of things that are happening on the river, that regional airport is vital. And so when it comes to that specific funding, I'm certainly going to be a big proponent of it because at the end of the day, we need to be advocates for our regional airports such that we ensure that people can travel freely and in a way that allows economic and the commerce initiatives of this area to thrive. And let me just say this as well. Obviously, recently, there's been a new wing, if you will, at Barkley Airport. And that, again, in my judgment, is making sure that it's a welcoming and inviting place that people want to go. They want to land their planes. And that is the first impression that a lot of people see. And so kudos to you all for making that investment because it is so vitally important as a first impression for people that are coming to this community and as a recruiting tool. And I want to be an advocate. And then when you think about, look, within the last month, I know the airport has put out a statement related to the fact that the FAA has said that they've got to limit some flight scheduling because of inspections. I want to make sure we're working with the FAA to increase flights and frequency so that more people are seeing this gym here in West Kentucky.
Okay, last question, and you'll have 1 minute for response.
This is the last question?
Last question.
Wow,
what can you do to ensure your constituents in Western Kentucky that you're committed to their priorities? How do you plan to stay involved throughout the state, and do you commit to having an office in Paducah?
Without question, I would have an office here in Paducah, and I'd ask Cade Foster so that we can save money, that I can put it in the county attorney's office. I'm just putting in a plug early. Look, I hope that you all know how grateful I am for a lot of you all that made the decision in 2019 to stand firm with me. In fact, right after I was elected, the very first public remarks I gave as Attorney General were in this very room. I care deeply about this community. And I know there's a lot of friends in this room. I imagine Randy Bridges is here somewhere in this room. I'm grateful to every single one of you and know that my commitment to you runs strong. Whether it's Daniel Jones over at Strawberry Hills Pharmacy, who allowed me to understand more in depth the issues and concerns of the independent pharmacist community, whether it's Judge Clymer, who's been so kind to me. This place is like a second home to me. I'm going to fight tooth and nail for you in the United States Senate.
Now you have 3 minutes for closing remarks, Mr. Cameron.
Well, it is, again, always an honor to be here amongst so many friends, so many people who have poured into and have invested in my previous campaigns. And that's not lost on me. That's certainly not lost on my wife, Mackenzie, who sends her well wishes as well. You all are an extension of our family. I've gotten to know a lot of you. Let me say something about Sandra Wilson. As a member of the Chamber of Commerce's Committee of 100, you guys continue to really have significant leadership on the national stage. This chamber is vital to the economic health of this Commonwealth. It's vital to the economic health of this region. And it would be such a great honor to serve as the next United States Senator for this Commonwealth, to fight for you. You know, in Washington right now, there are a lot of people in big business, in big pharma, big lobbyists. They've got their representation in Washington. But I want to be your representative. I want to be someone that you know when you call, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to stand firm for your values. Whether it was helping bring in nearly $900 million to this state to fight the opioid epidemic and fashioning an agreement with Randy and other members of the legislature such that 50% of those dollars, and I should say Stephen Rudy, who was instrumental in this, 50% of those dollars were going straight to our counties and cities. If you look at any other agreement on that opioid abatement money, a lot of that money went straight to the state government coffers. But I was committed to making sure we got as much of that money back out into the community, because I know you all know best how to utilize those dollars. And so when it comes to dollars, whether it's the BUILD program or whether it's the Maritime Administration and the resources that have been given to this community to revitalize and repair the Kentucky Lock and Dam, know that I am an advocate for you. At the end of the day, that is what this race is about. Who is going to do the best job of representing your interests? Who has shown up time and time again and understands your issues, understands and knows what it means to fight tooth and nail to do what's right by this Commonwealth? You know, when I was the Attorney General, we had a pretty serious investigation in Louisville. I had people protesting on our front lawn, threatening to burn our house down, saying that they were going to come and disrupt our wedding. But I stood firm. I stood firm for our law enforcement community. I stood firm for the laws of this state, and I've always defended our constitutional rights. I hope you give me an opportunity to serve in the United States Senate. It would be an honor. God bless you, and God bless our Commonwealth. Thank you so much.
Mr. Cameron, thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. Kentucky's primary election is set for May 19th. On May 12th, I'm moderating a forum featuring the major candidates for McCracken County Judge Executive, Craig Clymer, Matt Moore, and Richard Abraham.